Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whether you're on the West Coast, the East Coast, or, well, heck, if you're just spending time sitting in a chair on the coast and you're watching this on Facebook Live, live on Twitter, live on today's California, as well as today's Canada. You're going to find this episode on TheRudeDogShow.com. And make sure you tune in. Throw me a follow on Twitter. Follow along as we're going to navigate this evening for the AFC South. I know it's relatively been tumultuous for the Texans. We're going to go to that in just a minute, but I wanted to give everybody an understanding what the franchise tag looks like in regards to who signed on, who did not. And of course, there are always going to be holdouts regardless of where you're at in the NFL landscape. Chris Godwin, wide receiver, 3 years, $60 million. Cam Robinson, offensive lineman, 3 years at $54 million. Devontae Adams obviously went over to the Las Vegas Raiders, signed his 5-year, $141 million. And if those Madden players out there want to know, he's obviously part of the 99 Club, as you should be already aware of that. David Njoku, tight end for the Browns, 4 years, $54 million. Orlando Browns, offensive lineman, now still unsigned. Jesse Bates, also unsigned. I think the Bengals really trying to work that out. I don't have as much information as I would like in regards to why they're waiting so long or what kind of package he is looking for in order to sign off on it and get into training camp, as we know, is just under 2 weeks away. Dalton Schultz, earlier this year in the offseason, tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, signed his tender. And Mike Gesicki, tight end, also signed his tender as well. So some guys unsigned, mostly have been signed. And more importantly, we're going to dive right into the Texans. If you're joining live, thank you so much for doing so. I certainly appreciate it. Love having everybody on. Again, the glasses are more becoming a commodity than actually not needing to have them on my face. So thank you so much for tuning in, and don't mind the glasses. There's no glitz and glamour over here, except for the fact that we're talking some AFC South in regards to who's going up, who's going down. What does that look like for these teams that have done relatively well in the NFL draft? And more importantly, when you look at the Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans, of course, the bottom feeding Jacksonville Jaguars. And make no mistake, I don't think they're going to be bottom feeders for long. They're still stockpiling picks, and they're going to make some moves. We're going to discuss that toward the end of the show, but I certainly want to give you guys an outline as to what that looked like. Last year, we seen the Houston Texans go through a relatively tumultuous time in regards to Deshaun Watson, the legalities, the accusations, a lot of things swirling in regards to Deshaun Watson. Where does he go? Well, that was obviously answered as he moved over to Cleveland, bumping out Baker Mayfield, who was a key cog in regards to what they did during the regular season, throwing with a torn labrum, didn't look great against the Steelers. And more importantly, where do the Texans go from here now that he is no longer available, and they're going to have to figure out if David Mills is a guy moving forward or not. In round one, they had 9 picks. Derek Stingley Jr., the cornerback, Kenyon Green, offensive lineman out of Texas A&M, Jalen Petrie, defensive back out of Baylor, which is actually really good to see Petrie get picked where he did in the positioning that he ended up getting picked at. More importantly, Christian Harris, linebacker out of Alabama. Of course, you know that Alabama wide receiving core is always filled with nothing but great talent. I think more importantly, Alabama needs to restock and retool. As you know, Saban knows how to do that better than anybody, especially in the SEC. When it comes to round 3, you look at Christian Harris, linebacker out of Alabama, a guy who was a part of that fantastic linebacking core. And more importantly, again, one of those things where you're going to see Nick Saban find a way to get things done. And it looks as though I do have some some video issues. I guess it's probably better that I'm not on the screen, or at least I can't see myself on the screen. I apologize about that. At least you have audio, if nothing else. But certainly a lot of things to be desired in regards to where the Houston Texans are. But I know they grabbed Christian Harris, linebacker out of Alabama, Damian Pierce, running back out of Florida. They need to beef up that line. I think that was really important for them moving forward, especially with that, a single back set, maybe a dual back set for the Houston Texans going further into the regular season. Of course, I appear on camera and I have 2 less views. I don't know if the glasses, got to be the glasses. Just throwing that out there. Damian Pierce, running back from Florida, in round 4. Round 5, we've seen Thomas Booker, defensive tackle out of Stanford. Big body guy. He can get on the inside, and he knows how to protect on the perimeter, as well as Tegan Quitoriano, tight end out of Oregon State. Of course, everybody that's the lovers of the Pac-12, or is there a Pac-12 anymore? I'm not quite sure. Haven't had that discussion yet. We're not going to talk about that yet, but certainly forthcoming here within the week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. It's Rudy Reyes on Today's California. You're going to find this show on TheRudeDogShow.com. And, it's really important to note here that the Houston Texans were able to acquire a lot of these guys based on the Deshaun Watson pick, which was really good because they were able to circumvent for that and get a B rating, and at least in my view, and maybe even a B plus because of that that first round pick, first overall, Derek Stingley Jr. I was at the 2022 NFL draft. I've seen a lot of guys go, 5 defensive linemen straight up for the NFL. And I think more importantly is it shows the stock and value about defense winning championships, or do they? Do they? That remains to be seen. I do certainly like those picks. Austin DeColas, a 6th round pick, offensive lineman at LSU. You got to protect Davis Mills. But you know what? If this team could have surpassed, the Texans of about a year ago. They found themselves in a paradigm between Watson, as I mentioned earlier, and part of that downfall of the organization, at least from the onset. But having 9 picks certainly speaks to their credit, and how Nick Caserio was really able to gather momentum, gather the picks, get the guys that maybe not the best available, but the best for what he's trying to accomplish, which is rebuilding a franchise. I think more importantly, they will almost put themselves in a purgatory of sorts. And it's really kind of interesting to know that first round picks belong to them once in the first 4 drafts between 2018 and 2021. So they haven't found themselves in great position as far as NFL draftees and the picks and what they're currently using. But more importantly, there were a lot of things that Bill O'Brien did that wasn't really nobody was a fan favorite of Bill O'Brien, at least of me. I was certainly not that guy. Other people really questioned the duality of what he was able to bring. And unfortunately, he took more away than what he brought to the Houston Texans, which is the saddest part of all, I believe, because fans, it really questions whether or not the fans are going to stay there within the off season. Are they going to stay around? Are they going to go and, bat for the other team, essentially rooting for the Cowboys instead of rooting for their hometown Texans? I think it was more about what they're going to do moving forward. Of course, the guys I just mentioned, you probably have a good 5 or 6 instant starters on that Texans line, offensive or defensive. And I think that with 3 days worth of selection certainly says a lot about what Nick Caserio is trying to do with that Houston Texans organization. But it's gonna take a lot more than that. It's gonna take consistent winning. Of course, winning cures all ails. When I say ails, I don't mean alcohol. I mean ails as in ill feelings, ill will. We know that, the city of Houston, between the Houston Astros and baseball, and of course the home run derby's on tonight. And you probably noticed I'm wearing my Pirates gear because there is a Pirate playing in tomorrow's All-Star game. But when you look at Houston, it's not the best record, it's not the best situation. But I believe that when you look at the Texans, they're on the rise. They're going to gain some ground this upcoming season. They're going to answer a lot of questions in regards to how many wins they're going to get. I don't know if they're going to get that many. They could end up at 500, maybe a game above 500. But I believe that when you look at the Texans, it's kind of a boom or bust. I mean, and we see that throughout the NFL. We see 1 year tenders, 2 year tenders, 3 year guys. But 1 year is like a boom or bust for a lot of teams, and they'll go to that level. They'll get to that point where, maybe we just need to spend one year on one guy and then call it a day and be done with it in the following corresponding season. So I look at this and I think to myself, well, I don't know. It's really hard to tell whether or not you get Michi as a part of the package to start. Stingley obviously going to start. I think he's the shoe-in to start in this Texans backfield. And overall, when you look at the 2019 campaign for him, certainly you really have to ask yourself, is he going to maintain that form? Is he going to get back to what he looked like in 2019, especially with a Texas team that looks very porous in the secondary? I believe that when you look at this team, you look at the draft picks, you're going to have to get a lot more weapons surrounding him. The Deshaun Watson trade-off, sending him to Arizona, was a Bill O'Brien move. Probably that was the domino. That was the catalyst to help propel this Texans team into just purgatory, rather. And I think to myself, is this going to benefit Davis, Mills more than having a first-year starter, second-year starter? Maybe. I think when you have Michi, certainly answers the question in regards to the short game, the short slants on the outside, maybe even red zone opportunities, having him throw into Michi. It's really going to depend on chemistry, whether or not these guys are going to be able to come up to the NFL level as far as play calling, the football IQ. I think that has a lot to do with what the Texans really need. But Michi coming off an ACL tear certainly questions whether or not he's going to start. Again, I think the Texans find themselves in a plus minus 500 territory, maybe bouncing around 500. There's certainly a lot of questions in regards to that. I think that despite not getting the best guys available, I still believe that they made some pretty solid picks. It really is going to determine what this season is going to look like. And if they were going to analyze what that looks like at the end of the season, and they look at it and recognize they need some more help, well, as well as I do, they will. And whether or not Davis Mills will be the starting quarterback moving forward, again, it's all about quarterback play. It's about reads. It's about checkdowns. It's a matter of getting him the right guys to surround him to make him that much better of a quarterback, make him much more fluid, under center, recognize when he doesn't have to be a passer or maybe even a runner for that matter. So a lot of work to do for Houston. Tennessee, on the other hand, there's a lot of questions in regards to, yes, never been a big Tannehill fan, even when he was with Miami. Not a fan with him now. He gave away the farm last year. I mean, they had the chance at the number one seed in the first round bye and blew it. And I don't mean that from it was just on his shoulders. I mean collectively. It was the running back by committee, which I certainly appreciate with Adrian Peterson as part of the fill-in group. But one of the things that I did like about the 9 picks the Tennessee Titans had is they went and acquired Treylon Burks, who's a great wide receiver, who's tall, not DeAndre Hopkins-like, but from the standpoint of what he can bring from a fluidity standpoint, off the snap, being able to get off of the line, create opportunities. He's a relatively tall guy that can make other guys miss. So it's really going to depend on where Tannehill puts that ball. And if it's in Burke's hands, they're probably better off doing it that way. And of course, on the other side of the ball, they beefed up a little bit by acquiring McCreary. I like him. He's a solid guy. He's certainly been through a tumultuous season, but not overall. It's his senior season at Auburn was fantastic. And so they acquired him. And then rounds 3, they picked up Petit Frere, offensive tackle at Ohio State, a quarterback that I thought could have went in the first round. I had him picked by another team, and it would have been the Steelers, but they didn't pick him up. They went with Kenny Pickett instead, which is fine. They went with the hometown kid. But I believe that when you look at raw quarterback talent and how much time it would have taken Malik to get up to par, I think it wouldn't have taken that long at all. I think Malik Willis was certainly a guy I was surprised. I was there in Las Vegas when he was picked, and it was just a serious head scratcher that the Steelers did not go for him, and they picked up Kenny Pickett instead, which is nothing wrong with Pickett. I just believe that when you pick a Pickett, and you do a blindfolded, he's a next door guy. It's a door across the way from where the Steelers are playing. It doesn't necessarily mean he's the best quarterback available. I believe Malik Willis was the best quarterback available, in my honest opinion. And I like the body of work. I like his humility. There's a lot of great things to like about Malik Willis. I can fill the show. with that type of commentary, but I must move on. I digress. But Malik Willis is a guy that I certainly look out for, depending on, and again, it's about speed of the game. Can he catch up with that? What's his IQ like as far as the NFL IQ? And can he beat out Ryan Tannehill? Of course, there are always questions about Ryan Tannehill and whether or not he should circumvent his demeanor and, forego his machismo and help Malik Willis get to where I believe he needs to be. Now, historically, you look at other quarterbacks, they're not going to, bait and hug and caress these backups because they're after their job. Well, if you don't do the job, you may not even have a job. And I think Malik Willis can certainly prove that in the regular season. But I'm gonna hold off on being that Nostradamus-like because I'm not quite sure what that's actually going to look like. Thank you, Francis. I appreciate it. Shout out. There you go. You get your shout out. Maria's there with the consistency. Love it. Thank you, Maria. Appreciate it. Hello. When you look at round 4, Hassan Haskins, I really liked him out of Michigan. He's big-bodied. He's got thick thighs. He's just a guy that's going to run through walls for you. I think that's a fantastic pick, opposite of Derrick Henry, who led the league. It's just a lot of great things I like. But that wear and tear showed on him last season in regards to his longevity. He was running back by committee, as I stated earlier. But it's going to be a great 1-2 punch, and I foresee him possibly even starting as well a lot sooner than later, right behind Derrick Henry. Chigozium Okonkwo, tight end out of Maryland. He's a Terp. He's a big-bodied guy. I like his handwork, especially in the red zone. He's just he's a smart guy. He's a smart player, and I'm glad that he's in this system. Whether or not he'll be used efficiently, it remains to be seen, but I certainly like his play. I like his style. Kyle Phillips, wide receiver out of UCLA in the 5th round. I think he'll stick. They still need more wide receiving weapons for Ryan Tannehill or even Malik Willis at this juncture to have that deep ball threat. I think he'll stick. Whether he becomes a starter, well, that remains to be seen, but I do like his body of work while at UCLA. Theo Jackson, quarterback out of Tennessee. He's gritty. He's a very strong guy, strong in the hands. Great football IQ. Chance Campbell, linebacker out of Ole Miss. He knows his reads. He knows. He's got a quarterback eye is what he has, meaning that he knows how to get through. Whether he's going to be that supreme pass rusher, that remains, the jury's out on that one. But I would like to see him get in the backfield more often. I think he'll be used a lot more frequently if, in fact, he does. Now, when you look at the offseason, A.J. Brown goes to the Eagles, which was a massive move. I didn't see that coming, but they needed to free up the room. They needed to free up that wide receiving core. And, of course, the Eagles didn't give up the farm to acquire him either. But more importantly, you have Malik Willis waiting in the wings. I think that you'll have some veteran leadership that will help him during the offseason, which is now, again, less than 2 weeks to get into training camp. Certainly would be to his benefit to find someone that's going to mentor him, give him the right advice, doing it for the right reasons. Could be a Michael Vick kind of guy. Maybe a McNabb could give him some words of wisdom. Maybe his reads can do wonders with guys like that, help preparing him. Great quarterback coach. You can never, ever underestimate a great quarterback coach. And I think that can certainly be the case in Tennessee. But there's a lot of questions in regards to whether or not Ryan Tannehill is going to be that guy moving forward. Again, I'm not a fan of him, but I do like that Haskins in a day 3 pick. I really think he's a solid player. He's going to run through walls. He's going to just he's got great moves. He's got big thigh. He's just a big, solid player, and I like his play while in college. I just want to see him turn up in the NFL. As far as where the Titans go, they have some great picks, and I gave them kind of an A-, B-ish, only because I don't know that quarterback situation is going to be helpful to them in the regular season or hurtful to them in the regular season. And when do they make the change if, in fact, Ryan Tannehill is not going to be that guy? Is it going to be Malik Willis sooner? So a lot of questions. I'm not going to give the division or, I just can't see that. I just can't see Tennessee walking out of this without any bumps or bruises or scratches. But there is one team that certainly has my intrigue, and what they did in the offseason was absolutely nuts. That's the Indianapolis Colts. They went and acquired Matt Ryan from an Atlanta Falcons team where I believe he certainly did everything he could while he was there and to the best of his ability with what he had to play with. Double-headed monster, losing over 20 points in the second half of the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily believe that was all Matt Ryan's fault. There was a lot of blame to go around. Of course, the fingers started pointing out who, when, how, and why. But they did pretty good. They had 8 picks. Alex Pierce, wide receiver at Cincinnati, tall guy, very gifted physically. Jelani Woods, tight end out of Virginia. So you're giving not only protection with Bernard Raymond out of Central Michigan, but you're giving him more wide receiving components that he's going to need in order to be that much more efficient and effective while in the pocket, because we know Matt Ryan works from that standpoint. Nick Cross, safety out of Maryland, on the other side of the ball, certainly someone that I liked. I thought he went somewhere else. Eric Johnson, defensive tackle out of Missouri State. I like that pick in round 5. Ogletree out of Youngstown State. Not the biggest name on the block, but certainly worth a 6th-round pick. Curtis Brooks, defensive tackle out of Cincinnati. I like that pick. Rodney Thomas. And since when do you know Yale's coming up with the best and the brightest? Well, they may be the brightest, but not the best. The defensive back and Rodney Thomas. Okay, well, they could have something there. Don't know if he makes the roster. Could be a practice squad guy. The Colts did exactly what they needed to do, and that was get rid of Carson Wentz. I remember when he was so well thought of on third down, especially from a third down efficiency standpoint. At yards over 30, he was well over 50 to 60%. So it made you wonder exactly who this Carson Wentz guy is and if he's going to be consistent enough, and unfortunately not consistent enough, and found himself moving over to the Washington Commanders, who, for all intents and purposes, doesn't look any different than the guy that he's replacing. Of course, that's why they acquired him. And more importantly, when you look at the Colts, they just decided to go all out. And, so they passed on Sky Moore. Not a gigantic deal. He ended up going to Kansas City, which is fine. They need him after you get rid of the cheetah and Tyreek Hill. I think he's got to be that number 2 wide receiver for Matt Ryan, and he could very well be and the starter moving forward. So I do like the Matt Ryan pickup. I do like their draft. I think they probably had the better draft in the AFC South, and certainly a lot of questions remain if they can pull this all together. But the only issue that I have is that they waited until this year to find out who's going to be their cornerback, and they didn't really answer that question either. Could be cornerback by committee. That I'm not sure of. But I certainly do know that they're going to be a lot better this season, and they addressed 3 other needs as a part of the draft. So I like it. I like the move. I like exactly where and if there was any team that's going to win the division, it's going to be the Colts. It's just going to be the Colts. And when I say division, I mean the AFC South. They're certainly on the cusp of whether or not they can pull it together, and it not just looks good on paper. That is something that I want to see. Jacksonville Jaguars. Man, this is tough. They got a long way to go. Urban Meyer did them no favors whatsoever by kicking the kicker. Why he would kick a kicker is beyond me. But found himself with Omar Khan saying, you know what, this is good. I'm done. I'm done watching. I'm done dealing with this absolute nonsense and a charade of a coach that Urban Meyer actually is. He'll never see the ranks of an NCAA football team. He'll never see ranks of a head coach in the NFL. And nor will he'll probably ever get an opportunity to play as a head coach. And I say play because he never was a really good head coach to begin with in the NFL, as we clearly know. In the CFL, Jacksonville Jaguars had 7 picks. I like what they did with them, but again, there's so much rebuilding on this. It's kind of hard to know where to start, to be honest with you. I would start with the protection for their quarterback. It's supposed to be this big, tall, athletic guy, which Trevor Lawrence is, but without the help up front, that's really, really difficult. Yeah, they got him a better center, but that's not the only point of contact that, opposing defense is going to, pass after. They're going to be, your tackles and your guards. Trayvon Walker, defensive end out of Georgia, which is fine. Linebacker to Utah and Devin Lloyd, solid pick, 27th overall. Luke Fortner, that Kentucky center is very, very good. I look for him to probably be maybe a day starter. We'll have to see. But again, it takes more weapons than just a center to prevent any sacks on Trevor Lawrence. Chad Muma, linebacker out of Wyoming. Okay, that's a solid move. I love that move. But why a linebacker? Why not get him better protection? This can't be an offensive line in patchwork. And it can't be an offensive line that's going to crumble under pressure. And unfortunately, that's been the case, especially for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They went ahead and snapped up a guy, and then Snoop Connor, running back out of Ole Miss. Again, a big guy, solid, has great swim moves. I like his athleticism. Solid pick. Gregory Jr., a quarterback out of Wachita Baptist. Monteric Brown out of Arkansas. Defense. I like it. It's great and everything. Again, it's all great on paper. But if you're going to get a pass rusher, they had the ability to grab Kayvon Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson. They did neither one. So it's kind of a head scratcher in regards to what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. Why did they go after one of these guys? I don't know. I would have nabbed either one of them, to be quite honest with you. And when I was there at the NFL draft interviewing them, either one of those guys would have been great in the system. Unfortunately, they just did not go that way. Instead, they, assigned Foy Alukum to a 3-year, $45 million deal, spreading money out where it didn't need to be spread to, in round 3. They could have traded back. They could have drafted back. They could have said, you know what, this is not where we're at. This is not the direction we want to take this. We need to get more offensive weaponry. They lost Miles Jack to Pittsburgh, and they just needed to really beef up that offensive line. You can go defense, and that's great. Pac-12 Player of the Year in Lloyd, and Muma's obviously solid for the Cowboys now moving over to the NFL. I just don't know that you're picking a starting center that's going to be the centerpiece of that offensive line for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know. Connor could be a short yardage guy. That remains to be seen. I'd like to see maybe some red zone activity. Again, Doug Pederson knows exactly what he's doing. The problem is that it's not his money. And the fact they didn't do anything on the offensive line means that Trevor Lawrence is going to have to deal with some holes that he's going to have to be able to escape from in order to make completions downfield. I don't know that that's going to happen. And I don't know if that's going to be happening on a large scale and more frequently for Jacksonville. But this has been Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. I've given you the AFC South. What are your takeaways? What are your thoughts? Give me some of your opinions, your comments. Go to TheRudeDogShow.com where this will be posted. Tell me to follow on Twitter at RudeDogReyes. Find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I think I even have a MySpace page running around here somewhere. I don't know. But hey, thanks for tuning in. I certainly appreciate it. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. Everybody have a great evening. Thanks for tuning in.